when your fears have taken their toll, when the demons have got out control, when the shadows just won't leave you alone. I'll be there when your rainbows have turned into black, when the sun has turned its back, when all of your power let itself dry. I'll be
Welcome, my dear, dear traveler, to the Morbid Forest. Greetings, dear travelers. I have some fun news and a little extra horror morsel for you. Morbid Forest has partnered with Allure Stories, a subgroup on Reddit. The goal of the subreddit is to build a community that bridges relationships between writers and narrators. Each month, Allure Stories is hosting a writing contest where the winners get their stories narrated by one of the channel partners. Aside from the Morbid Forest, some of the other channel partners include YouTube channels Dark Night Tales, Cryptic Cliff, and Back to Ashes, formerly known as Phoenix Fire. If you're interested in participating in the monthly contests, I'll go ahead and leave a link to the subreddit in the show notes. And without further ado, the Morbid Forest is proud to present Symbiosis. If you were to drive east on the old business loop, the one with the empty storefronts long abandoned, the road potholed and cracking, and continued to drive without measured time and without miles recorded, to the point of turning back, to the point of second-guessing, you would eventually come upon a 5-storied building that you inevitably pursued. A gray, square, windowless building. The parking lot that surrounded the building, always bare save for the dead or dying trees that broke up the monotony of the concrete slab. No decals laid upon the structure, and no sign indicated the purpose of such a construction. Even though no insignia could be seen, and there were no markings indicating instruction, those who searched for the building would find that they could easily pass through the front glass door without hesitation. No obstacle stood in the way of anyone who wanted to enter. Those who did, whose goals and dreams were different from the others before and the others since, would all fall to the same finality eventually. The building called to those from the town, the downtrodden, the poor, the broke, the desperate, the lost, the unfound. A beacon that led these people to a figurative salvation, to a peace, to stability. The town was always too eager to answer, while neither the town nor the building could be seen while standing at either of these identifiable locations. Each were aware of the presence of the other and lived in a symbiotic relationship and were invariably linked through an unseen force. The building hungered and the town fed it. The broken would heed the call and travel that old highway day after day in search of reprieve, a comfort to the pain. They would stand in front of the gray building that called them, unknowing of the reason, but desperate and willing. Upon entering the building, those unfortunate souls from the town would be greeted with 5 identical chutes that each funneled into their own individual doorway. No staff present. A white-walled room lit by a string of fluorescent lights that created a blue-hued tone to those who walked through it. The metal rungs that divided each of the 5 chutes, cold to the touch, led every person where they were specifically intended. The first chute, furthest left, would funnel to the first of the doors that led to the first floor of the building that hungered. Those who entered this chute were the least repairable of the townfolk, though they had the most to lose. Desperation was the reason for their arrival. They worked in the town, provided for the town, but just like the building ate, the town also fed, and would eventually leave its own people malnourished. Seeking an answer to a question they were too naive to understand, they followed the beacon, followed the road, listened to the subconscious thought that had infected their core. Eventually, that fated building would appear, but not before the regrets formed and the lamenting began. Before they entered that white-walled room, the town, the road, had fundamentally changed them, altered and ripened. The building was ready to be fed. The townspeople, willing to be eaten, ready to sacrifice the last bit of dignity, to give up the last part of self-respect, a selfishly unselfish decision given to the building by the town. And like the first chute led to the first floor of the building, the second chute led to the second floor. The ones who entered this chute, which would only be entered if one had previously passed through the first chute, were not yet lost, but certainly more lost than the ones who had initially entered the building for the first time. They had already walked the old road before, dodged the holes dug by seasons, questioned their purpose, reasoned the decision, their sacrifice, the town's donation already made. The town ensured that those who entered the building, who had taken that path and traveled the distance to visit the gray squared structure, would return for the second time, down the second chute, and fed again to the building that craved for them. Those who had walked through the first and second chute would arrive for the third time. The road walked yet again, easier and more willing. These townfolk were now stripped bare. No longer a provider to the town, a bane of existence to all, but the building for now. Like the first 2 visitations, the third would lead the townspeople down the third chute that delivered these people to the third floor. They would return to the town from the third floor, different, skeletal and sunken, ignored, avoided by all. These town people carried the scarlet letter of the building, ridiculed under the hush of the town, hidden in alleys, back streets, removed from the eyes of the public. Eventually, they would step foot over foot down the old business loop a 4th time to visit the building. Again, the road, longer now. The destination was known, but the miles traveled grew. These people lost to all but the building. They would enter that glass door entrance, and like the first, second, and third time before, they were led down the 4th chute and would be brought to the 4th floor. those who returned, who made their way back to the town, could no longer be seen. A ghost, a shell of a person. They only knew the building, only cared for the building. They floated through the town, lost, weary, no more purpose, numb to all but that gray, windowless, 5-storied building. For the last time, the building would call for them. And for the last time, the townsfolk would listen. They would travel down the road that was now longer than before and longer than the time before that. They would enter the building and be led to the last of the chutes, the 5th one. The railing as you passed through this chute, rusty and worn, the blue hue gone. A simple light at the end called the townsfolk, lured them. They would enter the 5th door and would now be delivered to the 5th story. And the building ached. Those that entered the 5th floor were swallowed, gone, lost to eternity, never to be seen again. The town and the building's symbiotic relationship fulfilled. And like every time before and every time since, another would walk down the road without measured time, without miles recorded, to the point of turning back, to the point of second guess, until they saw that gray, square, windowless building. The building hungered, and the town fed it. This has been a Morbid Forest production, and on this bonus episode, you've heard the 3rd place winner for the monthly Allure Stories contest. This episode's title is Symbiosis, written by Christopher D. Douglas, with narration provided by Naomi Richards as your narrator. Story editing and audio production by Naomi Richards. Our theme music is The Shadows by Nandi Bushhill. Story theme music is The Mystery by Mew. Music and sound effects provided by Epidemic Sound. Interested in reading the stories or joining the monthly contest on the Allure subreddit? You can go ahead and check the show notes for the link to the Reddit group. Don't forget to follow us on X or Twitter if you're old school, Instagram, and on Discord to stay up to date on all the happenings within the forest. Interested in more morsels of the forest? Then join our Patreon. As a faithful traveler, you'll receive exclusive access to early episode releases, bonus content, and deals on merch for only $3 a month. That's patreon.com/themorbidforest. And just so you know, travelers, we have much more in store for you over the next couple of months. September may be a bit of a light month. However, our Patreons will be getting their bonus episode for the month. And of course, Halloween is just around the corner. So stay tuned to our socials for a fun little treat that we know you guys will enjoy. And with that, we'll see you guys next week on The Morbid Forest.